Welcome to Friends in the Corner podcast, a new podcasting experience here in the Bluegrass State of Kentucky. My name is Dan Polly, and you're listening to episode 3, Trace, here of Friends in the Corner podcast. And guys, I'm excited today because I get to share with you an interview I did with someone I've been wanting to meet for a very long time now, Mr. DJ Otis Badass. Mr. DJ Otis Badass is one of the DJs for WKQQ here in Lexington, a classic rock station here at the iHeartRadio studio. He is also the lead ring commentator for PTW Wrestling in Paris, Kentucky as well. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the history of pro wrestling here in the Lexington area. He's going to tell you a little bit about the history Macho Man Randy Savage has here in the Lexington area. We also talk about his promotion, PTW, and we also talk about his thoughts on the current WWE product as well. So get ready for a great interview with DJ Otis Badass that we're going to go into momentarily here. It was a good time just sitting and talking to him about wrestling, talking to him about a number of other things off the mic as well. It was funny because when I felt like we were getting to the point where we had enough content ready to go to get a good podcast here together, I was trying to wrap up the interview, and he just said, "No, what else do you want to talk about? I can talk wrestling all night. I can talk about anything all night." And we got a lot of good stories, had a lot of fun during that interview. So thank you, Otis, for your amazing interview. We had enough recorded that I probably could have made 2 episodes out of just the interview, just alone. So it was awesome. So we're going to go into that interview with Otis here momentarily. But before we do that, I've got some exciting news to share with my listeners. Well, guys, the Fat Lady sung, Hell's Frozen Over, and Pigs Are Flying, because Friends in the Corner podcast is officially on iTunes. The long wait is finally over. After weeks of battling, after weeks of emailing, we are finally on iTunes, which means you now have 5 different ways you can listen to Friends in the Corner podcast. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, and YouTube. Also, if you're going to be listening to us on iTunes or Stitcher, be sure to leave us a review and give us a 5-star rating so that more people can listen to the podcast. If you want to follow the podcast, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FITC Podcast. That's FITC Podcast. And you can always email the show at friendsinthecorner@gmail.com. That's friendsinthecorner, all together lowercase, at gmail.com. So be sure to do all that. We're excited for where this podcast is going. And thank you all for the great comments and great reviews that you've been leaving us so far. Now, without further ado, we're going to get ready to go into our interview with Mr. DJ Otis Badass. Let's rock and roll. We're here right now with one of the people I've been looking forward to interviewing for a long, long time.
Stop it. You're too kind already coming out the gate here. Come on now.
Listen, I was just telling a buddy of mine the other day, of my top 5 Twitter follows, DJ Otis Badass is actually in there. So,
well, I've never been highly complimented like that. I mean, you're talking about 41 years in the business here. Nobody's given me such a high compliment as somebody on Twitter wanting to interview me. So, hey, I'm going to take it. Looking forward to it.
It was great. We actually, one time we took your recommendation. You were tweeting about a Bigfoot festival in Lawrenceburg.
And that was this summer. Yeah.
And my girlfriend and I were just happened to be, she lives in Lawrenceburg, and we were just happened to be there. We're like, well, let's just go check it out. So it was like.
And that was the first Bigfoot festival.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. And how that, it all goes back to wrestling. You're going to find out this all goes back to wrestling. But our videographer in Primetime Wrestling, he put on the Bigfoot Festival.
Really?
In Lawrenceburg. And he's in all this ghost and demonic hell-raising stuff and, Ouija boards and everything. I love him to death. Jeff Waldrich, he's fantastic. And him and I have worked on a couple of documentaries together. And he said, man, he goes, I need an MC for the Bigfoot Festival. Are you interested? When is it? Well, it's on a Saturday. What time do you need me? Well, I need you there at 7 a.m. I was like, you got to be kidding me on a Saturday. And, I mean, it was fun. It was great. We had a great time. doing that. But the one joke that I said, were you there for any of the contest?
No, we just sat around and drank beer.
Okay, good for you. But the one joke that I said that went over everybody's head, and I was talking about Bigfoot sightings in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And I said in the late 80s, Bigfoot was also found at Rupp Arena destroying cars, and nobody got that. I mean, over like 300 people, right over their head. I'm like, that was a monster truck joke. Come on, guys. Now you get it. Now you get it. Okay.
I vaguely remember Bigfoot the monster truck from my time as a little kid.
All right.
That's awesome.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm excited to be interviewing you here, Otis. And if you don't mind, can you just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and where you're from? Loaded question, I know.
Parts unknown.
Parts unknown.
Who?
Sticking to the gimmick.
Who am I? That's a loaded question right there. I don't even know who I am when I wake up in the morning. I'll tell you this. Here's the best way I can put it to you. In college, when I started off in college radio, I was the smooth pimp of love, playing pimp jams on Friday night, Deluxe Love. And then Deluxe Love kind of morphed into this rowdy, wild, redneck DJ playing Hank Williams Jr. and Leonard Skinner, and it turned into DJ Otis Badass. And that was, the DJ Otis Badass gimmick is, y'all raising hell, getting drunk, getting wild tonight here at Austin City Saloon. Put your middle fingers up high in the air. Going to take your pretty blonde, take her home, get her naked, jump in a pile, put some hot sauce on it, and make it extra hot. Let me hear you say, how.
I wasn't ready for that.
I know you weren't. I know you weren't. So that was DJ Otis Badass. Now DJ Otis Badass has turned into, hello again, everybody, from the PTW Sportatorium in Paris, Kentucky. Exciting. Primetime Wrestling is on the air. Hi again, DJ Otis Badass alongside the Kentucky Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer, the PTW Hall of Famer, the old school icon, Lone Wolf, Bobby Blade. So you can see I don't know who I am when I wake up in the morning.
Just all mixing together.
Yeah.
Where'd you come up with the name DJ Otis Badass?
Yeah, that's funny because one of my all-time favorite songs, and you've seen me on Twitter, I'm wild about my music. And it goes from everything from Leonard Skinner to James Brown. And one of my favorite songs is American Badass by Kid Rock. And
WWE Hall of Famer.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? You think of 20 other people that could be in WWE Hall of Fame, and they put Kid Rock in the celebrity wing. So that's one of my favorite songs, and one of my all-time favorite singers is Otis Redding. And for some reason, I mean, this was 2001, the CD changer went from Otis Redding to, you heard, sitting on the dock of the, I am American Badass, and somebody said, Otis Badass. That's kind of cool. And it stuck. So that's the way it happened.
And we come to 2018.
Yeah, it's still kicking.
Well, awesome. Well, we just dropped a little bit of WWE here, and I know we're getting ready to talk wrestling. You're actually the very first person I've ever talked wrestling with.
Really?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of fans I know up this way, and so this is exciting for me to kind of branch out of that shell and talk a little grapples and
we'll talk wrestling all day if you want.
Right. Well, how did you become a wrestling fan?
As soon as I figure out I could put a Macho Man flying elbow on my sister jumping off the couch, my parents not looking, always grew up being a wrestling fan. And you got to understand too, when I grew, how old are you?
I'm 27.
27. Okay. So we got some years between us here. What you have to understand is growing up, and we'll get into territories, but we didn't have all the wrestling that you have now on the internet and how easily accessible it is through YouTube and all these different independent promotions starting their own network. So what we had was WWE and watching it on USA on cable or Saturday Night's Main Event on NBC. We got WCW that was on TBS.
Mm-hmm.
Now originally I'm from Northern Kentucky. I know I said parts unknown earlier. So I would actually come to Lexington to stay with my grandparents, and I was able to watch ICW in the early 80s. The Poffos, Angelo Poffo, we'll talk about him in a little bit if you want, was able to watch CWA, all that great wrestling out of Memphis. That was on here in the Lexington market. So I was kind of like caught in the middle of watching WWE and then watching some of the wrestling programs I could get here in the Lexington market, and then watching NWA, WCW, and I kept thinking in my mind, I know there was a crossover between Mid-Atlantic on the East Coast and the Carolinas. I want to think that they sent their programs to Cincinnati television stations, and I keep thinking that I remember seeing Mid-Atlantic Wrestling out of Cincinnati. Even though it was based in the Carolinas, I know I saw it on Cincinnati TV stations. So I was just consumed with it growing up. And my sister, she eventually got into it. My mom just thought it was absolutely ridiculous. My dad's like, you know what? Kids are going to be kids. Let them watch wrestling. And my cousin was into it as well. So, I mean, we always grew up being big wrestling fans.
Well, who were some of your wrestling heroes when you were growing up?
Growing up, well, the obvious one with me growing up in the 80s would have been Hulk Hogan. Mm-hmm. And then watching, before even WWE, and I was watching ICW on Channel 36 here in WTVQ. I was a big fan of the Macho Man Randy Savage. Even a bigger fan now. Hogan, I don't want to say I'm not a fan. It's just over the years, I've learned so much about wrestling that's made me more of a fan of individuals that I've studied, that I've watched. Grew up being a big, huge Ric Flair fan. Oh. Still, to this very day. I mean, even if I go up and say hi to Ric Flair at a comic book convention, I'm like shaking that I'm actually talking to the 16-time world heavyweight champion, Nature Boy Ric Flair. So Savage and Flair, growing up in the 90s and going to college, went to Georgetown College. It was Austin and The Rock. It just doesn't. So I know what this is going to, and Dusty, I'm a huge Dusty Rhodes fan. The Mount Rushmore of wrestling for DJ Otis Badass. I mean, it would have to be Flair, Savage, Dusty. I know I'm naming 5. The Rock and Austin. So to answer your question,
Rushmore. So
yeah, do whatever the hell I want with Mount Rushmore. Yeah. So
it's crazy just to hear all that wrestling history just right there. I kind of came into wrestling at a really weird time. It was 2004, right after the Attitude Era, so I didn't really have all those guys. I grew up with watching Shawn Michaels, Eddie Guerrero, and all those guys. A little bit different.
See, I have to. I thought Eddie Guerrero was great.
Oh, he was amazing.
He just had it. He had it.
Oh my God,
he had it, and so tragic that he passed away.
Yeah, I still remember the day I found out. My dad came into my room and he handed me the newspaper. He's like, "Hey, you know Eddie Guerrero?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, he just passed away last night." I was like, "Wow!" And I cried. I was like, I never cried about something more than
there's only been 2 times that I've literally broke down and cried. When a sports figure, let me say 3 times. Melvin Turpin. I'm a huge UK fan. Grew up watching Melvin Turpin. And when he tragically took his own life, I mean, I just broke down and cried. And then the other 2 times, or 3 times, I keep adding to things, I'm sorry. Macho Man Randy Savage really got me. Dusty really got to me as well. And then Dale Earnhardt, when Dale Earnhardt passed away, I was a huge Dale Earnhardt fan.
I was a little kid, but I remember hearing, I've seen that too.
My point is, it's amazing how you grow up watching these individuals, these sports personalities and wrestlers, and you become attached to them. You do. And, especially with Savage's history here in Lexington, you grow attached to them, and, that's kind of the power they have over fans. They've been able to kind of reach outside that television and connect to you somehow. It's amazing what wrestling can do to fans like that. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
It gets you really connected.
Right. It does in more ways than one. I mean, you can watch TV before the internet, before we could do Twitter and comic book conventions and everything. You somehow felt a connection watching some of these guys, and part of it's your childhood.
Well, you mentioned a little bit. You just mentioned about Randy Savage and his connection to Lexington. I actually don't know too much about.
Oh, you don't know this?
No. I was going to ask about who are some of the legends of Kentucky that we wanted to highlight here. I know some of the current guys like Ricochet's from Purdue,
right?
Paducah,
right?
Sarah Logan's from Hazard and stuff like that, but none of the old school guys.
Well, if you want to go way back, way back, you can go back to the professor, Roy Shropshire from Georgetown, Kentucky. He wasn't a big name in Kentucky, but and we're going all the way back to the 40s. Where he made his name was in the Pacific Northwest Territory out there. Roy Shropshire from Georgetown. To get back to the Macho Man Randy Savage, you got to understand Savage's daddy, Angelo Poffo. The Savages were originally from Illinois. Angelo was an Italian immigrant. So the way they ended up in Lexington, Angelo was also a wrestler. And apparently he held like some ungodly world record of consecutive sit-ups. I mean, Angelo was the real deal. And Angelo had wrestled in Lexington back in the 50s. And so what had happened is that Angelo had came to Lexington because Savage could not get over in any of the other territories sanctioned by NWA. So Angelo decided to come to Lexington and start his own, what is considered an outlaw promotion. So basically, an outlaw promotion, if it wasn't sanctioned by the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, you're considered outlaw. So the territory out of Memphis was reaching up into Louisville. They would come to Rupp Arena, but there really wasn't a home base for a wrestling promotion until Angelo came here and created ICW, International Championship Wrestling. So that's how he was kind of able to fuel Randy and his brother, Leapin' Lanny Poffo, he kind of fueled their career starting here in Lexington in the late 70s and early 80s. And then eventually Savage, I think I got the timeline mixed up, but Savage was in CWA out of Memphis as well. But, I mean, dude, you talk about a hot rivalry between CWA and ICW. I mean, just some wild stuff. But, yeah, that's how Angelo kind of cemented Randy Savage in the wrestling world.
Wow.
Was right here in Lexington, Kentucky. And they shot over at Channel 36. When studio wrestling, and that's like my lifelong goal is to get studio wrestling back here in this market. Channel 36, they were actually shooting with a live studio audience. They would shoot their program. They would bring people in, and you've got Savage in there, and you got Leapin' Lanny Poffo and Crusher Broomfield, and one of my all-time favorite names, he was the manager, Izzy Slapowitz, and Hustler Rip Rogers. I mean, man, you just talk about some wild talent that came through ICW. But now here's a fun story. What they realized was that Channel 36, they had switched station managers. So the station manager was going to charge Angelo a whole lot more to use the studio to shoot wrestling programs. So they got smart, Angelo, Randy, and Lanny. They went out and bought a bunch of video equipment. So all their shows they're doing at auditoriums and high school gymnasiums, they start shooting the footage on their own. Randy and Lanny had taught themselves how to edit, and they start putting these tapes together and started sending them out to television markets to cut down on their cost as a promotion.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, before that, if you ask anybody in Lexington, I guarantee you they have a Randy Macho Man Savage story.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I was telling one last night to somebody, and they said I was full of it. I said, no, it's true. I heard that he robbed a liquor store. And so anyway, and I say it with all due respect, but Dave Baker, Channel 27, WKYT, he told me years ago, but before the Poffos bought all this editing equipment, Savage would come over there, and ICW aired on 27 at one point. So Dave would be working third shift at Channel 27, and Randy Savage would come over there, come to the back door at Channel 27, 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, Dave, hey, Buzz, can you help me edit these tapes to send to Vincent Kennedy McMahon? Yeah. 3 o'clock in the morning, there's Buzz Baker and Randy Savage editing tapes to send to Vincent Kennedy McMahon, WWF, man. How crazy is that? Yeah.
Wow. And you never think like a star as big as Randy Savage was, his connection here is like, man. Well, especially, I'm not originally from Lexington, but it's not really talked about as much now as it used to be.
It's not, and it's people forget he played for the Reds.
Yeah,
and he played for the Cardinals too. I mean, he was part of their farm system, and there's, if I can ever find it one day, I know they're out there. If I can find these baseball cards with Randy Poffo on there, I'm buying them. I am buying them. But yeah, you talk about it, huge impact of wrestling in the state of Kentucky with the Poffos and ICW. And here's how wild it was. I talked to the Honky Tonk Man a couple years ago at a convention. And when CWA out of Memphis was coming up and wrestling at Rupp Arena, there was so much heat between CWA and ICW that the ICW guys were waiting out back at Rupp Arena to jump the CWA guys. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, there was, apparently I wasn't there, but I've heard there was knives, guns had been drawn. It was wild. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's another story I heard that the great legendary announcer Lance Russell at CWA, Savage went attacking him after a limo. He drove a limo up they'd taken a limo from Memphis up to Rupp Arena, and Savage was climbing over the fence to get to Lance Russell because Lance Russell had bamboozled him on the television deal at Channel 18 to try to get their program on there. So yeah, wild. I mean, just wild stuff.
Days of the territory.
It's great. I love it. I absolutely love it.
It seems like you're very well versed.
I don't know about all that. So
I know. So you've had this experience with wrestling, and you grew up watching and stuff like that, and eventually now you've actually moved into a part where you're actually involved in wrestling,
right?
Yourself as a part of a primetime championship wrestling or primetime wrestling. Primetime wrestling. Can you tell us a little bit about that promotion?
Yeah, Primetime Wrestling. We're based out of Paris, Kentucky. Over the last few years, we were based out of Georgetown, and then this year, let's see, it would have been January. We were able to obtain a building in Paris, and we call it the PTW Sportatorium. And the way the name of the Sportatorium came about was when we were doing shows in Georgetown. I was like, the bingo hall has the Georgetown bingo hall. I don't know. Let's call it the Sportatorium. So as a joke, I started calling it the Georgetown Sportatorium, and then I was going around calling it the Primetime Wrestling Sportatorium. So we get this facility in Paris, and we start calling it the PTW Sportatorium. And we had named it after the legendary Dallas Sportatorium, where world-class championship wrestling was taking place. And that's where the Freebirds and the Von Erichs had their just wonderful feud together. It was all down there at the Dallas Sportatorium, so that's how the PTW Sportatorium came about. But Primetime Wrestling started, I want to say, in 2004, 2005.
Oh, wow. So you guys have been around for a while.
Yeah, it's been around, but it kind of went through a change. Our current owner, Larry Jones, legendary Larry D, his parents actually started Primetime Wrestling. Bobby Jones and Mother Jones is what I like to call her. And I think they ran for a couple of years, and they were running shows in Harrodsburg, Mackville, Georgetown, Paris. And then they kind of let it drop after a couple of years. Not sure what happened there, but all of a sudden, here comes legendary Larry D, and he's like, wait a minute, we can do this. We can do it. So he kind of revived Primetime Wrestling, and now this is, it's been his child. I mean, he has literally been in it from the very beginning. He partnered with Daryl Kelly, King Hustle, which King Hustle kind of handles the business side and the promotion aspect of it. Legendary Larry D, he's the tag team champion. Everything legendary, him and Max Sled, Mr. Everything, Max Sled. And Larry D's great to work for. Really is. He's great. And so we bounce a lot of ideals off of each other. Now, to get back to your question of how I got involved, purely freak accident. Here's what I was doing. I was going down to Georgetown, the bingo hall, and it worked out great because I would go to my parents' house, drop my dog off, have Sunday dinner with them, and then go over and watch wrestling at the flea market. So I got the idea one day. I mean, I would just be sitting there and I would just be kind of announcing. Not really announcing, but just kind of messing around a little bit. And then somebody gave me the idea. I said, you got to live stream these matches. See what you can do with them. Okay. So I started live streaming the main event on Periscope.
Oh, just on your phone?
On my phone. So I'd bring a tripod and I'd set it up and I'm literally calling the action there. I mean, I'd sold advertising during this. I've got police officers in New York City watching. His friend of mine who's a police officer in New York, he was like, dude, he goes, like 8:15 on Sunday nights, we're on our break. We're all sitting around my phone watching the main event in Georgetown, Kentucky. I was like, that is so cool that you guys are doing that. And so I was going up to the promoter and Larry, and it was like, just in case you guys want to know, you had 350 people. Now, that may be not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but 350 new eyes watching the main event in little old Georgetown, Kentucky. That's something. So I started announcing this and everything. And then one of the ring announcers who was there, he tells the story a whole lot better than I do, but he said he was backstage and he was like, guys, listen, he's doing it. I mean, I was like, gee, like you're comparing me to a zoo animal flinging poo or something, you know. He's doing it, you know. So they called me. They started shooting DVDs and they wanted a color commentary announcer. Sure, I'll do it. They were like, we've heard your stuff. We like what you do. And so it started out with Aaron Rose, who got me into this, Lone Wolf Bobby Blade, who's my full-time announce partner. And eventually they moved me up to play-by-play. Just like that last year. So it's been a hell of a ride.
Man.
It's been a lot of fun. So I've done ring announcing, play-by-play commentary. We host when we do our DVD tapings, we host a pre-show. So it's a little bit hectic at times, but man, I love a production. And we have the best fans as far as independent wrestling is concerned in Lexington, in the state of Kentucky. I don't think you'll find a better fan base. I don't think you'll find a more passionate fan base. And the emphasis is on passionate.
Yes.
And the PTW proud. Hashtag PTW proud. I mean, they love it. And they're bringing signs in. Holler. They want stuff that's objects used from the ring. If we have like some kind of hardcore no DQ match, I had somebody come up to me 2 years ago and wanted a garbage can. And it was been all out of shape. And he comes up and he goes, you think you can get that garbage can for me? I said, well, do you want me to have them sign it for you? He goes, oh, that'd be great. So literally, I've got guys in the back signing a garbage can for them, you know, and they want our posters. They want plywood. They want broomsticks. They're nuts. I love it.
What does that mean to the wrestlers to have a fan base that wild about the product for them?
It's putting fuel on the fire. It really is. I mean, the way I compare it. Now, I've never been in gorilla position. You know what gorilla position is, right?
Right.
Okay. I've never been in that position. I don't know what it's like coming out, hearing a bunch of fans cheer you on. But what I can equate it to is as soon as I hit that microphone button and hit on, like that, you're on, you know, and you don't have time to turn back. You've got to go. And I think the fans just fuel it, you know, and when you hear that gets you amped up and ready to go, and that brings enthusiasm to what you're going to do in the ring. And I mean, it's almost like, now this is the exact opposite. If you're a heel,
a bad guy for those who don't know.
Right. And the people are just hurling insults at you, one right after another, you want to up your game in the ring. You know, you want to let them know you're one bad dude. Come on, bring it. You want to say something else bad about my mama? Let me show you what I'm going to do here in the ring. So I think the guys love our fans, whether they're a heel or a face, it don't matter. I just think they love our fans.
How do you guys find some of these wrestlers? Obviously, you've probably built some morale with them and stuff like that to keep coming back, but just
It's
word of mouth.
It's word of mouth. It's watching tape.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old school. I still use the word tape. Now it's YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain reference that goes along with it. You know, if there's a promoter from another, promotion saying, hey, you know, we got a kid here. He's a little green, but he wants to work. Can you get him in somehow? You know, and I mean, we've got guys coming from Cincinnati, Tyler Matrix, you know, Decatur, Alabama, you know, wrestled in OVW. We got guys coming everywhere. And, you know, it's word of mouth. But and what can they bring to our product? What can they bring to Primetime Wrestling? There was somebody the other night that we watched. He made his debut. His name's Logan James. And he took ATM to the limit. And Austin Tyler Morris ended up winning the match, but I'm watching this kid, and immediately I'm on the phone coming out of the sportatorium. I told my friends, I said, you got to watch this, come down and watch this Logan James kid. And no offense against him, but the most unassuming guy in the locker room. Quiet, you know, and granted it's his first night there, but daggone, when he got in the ring, his athletic ability, his talent spoke volumes.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and it was literally the match of the night. And it was fantastic. That's what's great about it, is that you don't know what these guys can do until you see them in the ring. You know, don't be too quick to judge them.
Has there been any big names to come to PTW as a booked?
Yeah. Going back to the PAFA, hey, listen, everything that happens in wrestling around this area, it all goes back to the PAFOs. We had Leaping Lanny PAFO in back in May, Angelo's son, Randy's brother. And he came in, and he was fantastic. And he brought Macho Man's WWE Hall of Fame ring.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, and somebody, I don't know who it was, somebody brought one of Macho Man's robes.
Wow.
Yeah, and it literally said Macho Man on it, and it had the Playboy Bunny logo on the back of it, which just adds more to the legend of Randy Savage, which is fantastic. But Eric Young.
Oh.
There's a name for you.
From SmackDown right now. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on SmackDown.
Eric, we've had Rhino.
Okay.
Come
ECW.
in. The Monster Abyss from Impact.
Yeah.
Who's seems like every time I turn around, the Monster Abyss is here. And that's the thing, is that these guys love coming to PTW. If they didn't love it, they wouldn't do it. And the Monster Abyss, I mean, he's just great. He's awesome. When he brings Janice, you know, literally the whole crowd's on pins and needles because we don't know what the Monster Abyss is going to do with Janice. But who else was there? Somebody else. There was somebody else over the last couple of years that we've had in. But yeah, we get them in.
And obviously, with your promotion, you're giving some guys some opportunities to shine in their own right and doing DVDs and stuff. Like, has any of your guys from PTW gotten any looks from any bigger companies? Maybe not WWE, but Impact or ROH, anything like that?
Well, right now, leading the pack on that's legendary Larry D.
Really?
He just went out to Iowa a couple months ago. And Iowa. Let me tell you. You ever been to Iowa?
No.
Okay, let me tell you about I'm gonna tell one on legendary Larry D. I told him, I said, now listen, I said, you go all the way out to Iowa. You look behind every tree, there's a pretty girl. Legendary Larry D came back, he just madder than hell at me. He said, you told me if I went out to Iowa and looked behind every tree, there'd be a pretty girl. And I said, yeah. I said, what happened? He goes, there weren't any trees. He wrestled for, oh, geez, and this is bad. Let's just say under the umbrella of Impact Wrestling.
Okay. Like a developmental type of deal?
I don't know exactly what it was, but it was huge. And I can't think of it right now, but it was really, really big. And that literally, I mean, if you talk to legendary Larry D, it was the biggest wrestling weekend of his life. And what was great for me, being a good friend of his, what's great is seeing all these new followers on Twitter. And people are tweeting him from Iowa, of all places. You got to think, we know about legendary Larry D here in Kentucky. They don't know about legendary Larry D in Iowa. So now, from my understanding and some of the talks that we've had over the last couple of weeks, he could end up going to Canada. He's looking to go to Japan.
Wow.
Yeah.
His name out there. Wow.
Right. So definitely his name is getting out there quite a bit. And he wrestles in Ohio. He was in Mississippi one weekend. He was, like I said, out in Iowa. The dude's everywhere. The dude is everywhere. And yeah, I think he's 32 years old. And he just had a newborn kid. And he's dragging his family all over the place wrestling with him. It's great. It's great. But if there's anybody that I think that is leading the way, it's him.
Now, what are your hopes for PTW as you guys continue to grow and get your name out there?
Putting butts in seats. I mean, well, I say that. I want to develop the fan base a whole lot more. I want it to be to the point where it's standing room only. Get you back to a little Lexington wrestling history here. Woodland Park Auditorium. Mm-hmm. This was back in the 30s. There's 2,000 people in there. Standing room only on a Tuesday night.
For a PTW show?
No, I'm talking about what I'm talking about is I want to get to that point where it's a standing room only. What I was trying to tell you was back in the 1930s at Woodland Park, there was an auditorium and there was wrestling there and they would do 2,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the draw. And it was standing room only. And they were like literally hanging off the rafters to watch wrestling. To me, I want to get back to that. I do. One of my other goals, and we've taken a huge step over the last 24 hours to get to this point. I would love for local wrestling to be on local television here in this market.
Yeah.
I would love to see it happen. I'm old. There's a little bit of nostalgia there, being able to watch wrestling on TV. I don't know if there's, because of the internet and you can get things on YouTube and certain networks are popping up here and there with these independent promotions. I don't know if there's room for wrestling on television. But we have an ideal. We're working towards it. That's one of our goals. The other goal is to get better. Everybody get better. And that's what you're seeing in PTW right now. Logan James, who I just told you about. I like to say this constantly. Austin Tyler Morris, who is a former PTW elite champion, I think over the last couple of years, he is the most improved wrestler in the state of Kentucky. I really do. I want our guys to get better. You know, I want PTW to be the place that guys want to come in and wrestle. I want to wrestle for legendary Larry D. You know, I want to wrestle for PTW. I want to wrestle for the PTW proud. That's what I would like to see moving forward.
Tell me, what do you think about WWE right now? Do you watch WWE at all right now, or where's your allegiance with it at the moment? Probably a bad choice of words, but I think you know what I mean.
I watch it. I don't watch it as consistently as I did maybe 3 years ago. I don't watch as consistently as I did back in the 80s. Now, the network, that's a different story because we have access to all that old stuff. I'll watch the hell out of that all day. But as far as the new product, I watch it. It's I'll admit it. Sometimes it's hard for me to get into it. Sometimes, 3 hours on a Monday night's a long time.
Yeah.
I get it from the standpoint of commercial breaks, but 3 hours is long. I think 2 hours is good enough. Now, that doesn't say that I have great admiration and great respect for those guys and gals getting in the ring and putting their bodies at risk, doing what they do, and entertaining thousands of fans. You know, so from that, there's a lot of respect, and that's what I admire about the WWE, that they have been able to do it consistently, night in and night out. But for me, sometimes it's just not the wrestling I grew up watching. You know, and Jim Cornette, this is the best way I could sum it up if I could quote the Louisville Slugger, Jim Cornette. He said, fans didn't leave wrestling. Wrestling left the fans. And I think he's talking to guys my age. that grew up watching CWA out of Memphis, grew up watching ICW. But I mean, overall, I'm still going to be a fan. Mm-hmm. I'm still going to go to WWE. Mm-hmm. I will absolutely. I love sitting down and talking wrestling. Mm-hmm. I got to interview Seth Rollins a few weeks ago. I got to interview Natalya. I got to interview Jinder Mahal. I will do it every time just to talk wrestling and just to get their story. Honestly, I think I'm more of a fan of the individuals than I am WWE as a whole right now, the current product, if that makes any sense.
It does. What about outside WWE? Is there any products that you pay attention to at all?
I pay attention to Ring of Honor, and man, I really like what they're doing. It seems like there's more hardcore Ring of Honor fans than what you could imagine out there. I mean, the majority of wrestling fans are going to sit there and say they're WWE fans, but then you're going to get a couple old boys that say, you know what, I don't watch WWE. I'm Ring of Honor all the way. I think they have a simple formula, and I think it works. Sucks that it's on at midnight. You can't watch it live, but you know what? That's what they record DVRs for.
Right.
That's what they make DVRs for. So I like to keep up with Ring of Honor. Impact, there's so much wrestling out there. It's hard to keep up with it. And sometimes I almost wonder if things are getting oversaturated a little bit. I don't think there will never stop being wrestling fans. There might be a stoppage in a fan of this promotion, a fan of that promotion. So Impact, I don't really keep up with. Now, if somebody tells me there's a certain spot in the show I should watch, then I'll go back and watch it, try to find it. I think what's more interesting now is all these independent promotions, outside of Ring of Honor, WWE, and Impact. I like to keep up with some of the local stuff. Northern Wrestling Federation out in Cincinnati, Roger Ruffin, Roger Ruffin, what a career in wrestling. I mean, he trained the Monster Abyss. Carl Anderson.
Is he from Cincinnati?
I don't know if he is from Cincinnati. I have to go back and check that out. I know Dean Ambrose is.
Yeah.
But yeah, he trained Carl Anderson. I mean, just a great list of wrestlers that he's trained. So I like to keep up with what Roger Ruffin's doing in NWF
and that's
Cincinnati.
And that's still running right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure is. We have guys going to a great wrestling promotion out of Dayton, Rockstar Pro Wrestling. I haven't gone yet, but I like to read about it and find out what's going on because we have a couple of our guys that every once in a while they go up there, wrestle. Legendary Larry D is one of them, and apparently he's awesome up there. And he's told me that the whole product up there is awesome and that I would absolutely love it. So I'm hoping to make that road trip with them this week to go up there. So it's hard to keep up with it all. It really is. Here's my point. It is a great time to be a wrestling fan because there is so much wrestling out there.
Well,
you got more than what you bargained for tonight, didn't you?
I've had the biggest history lesson on Lexington wrestling I was hoping for, and it's awesome. I've had no idea, and it's amazing. I hope the listeners love this.
I hope so too. So
yeah. I was like, we get enough history about UK basketball. Let's talk about some wrestling. You know what I mean? I was like, well, the last thing I just want to do here is just give the floor to you. If you want anything you want to pitch, you want anything you want to sponsor, put your social media out there, anything like that, sponsor give a shout out to PTW. The time is yours.
Sure. The place to be on Sunday nights is Primetime Wrestling at the PTW Sportatorium, 4243 Lexington Road, Paris, Kentucky. The PTW Sportatorium inside the Bourbon Square. Bell time 6:30 every Sunday night. That's at the PTW Sportatorium, 4243 Lexington Road, the Bourbon Square, Paris, Kentucky. PTW on Twitter at PT Wrestling. Follow us and keep up to date with the schedule. Your favorite superstars coming in, going out of the ring, whatever it may be going on at PTW. So you can follow us in there. And Facebook, it's Primetime Wrestling KY. So make sure you become a fan of PTW on Facebook. I'm at DJ Otis Badass on Twitter. I don't do Facebook. Best decision I ever made was get rid of Facebook about 7 years ago. It's fantastic. You know how many books I've read since I'm no longer on Facebook? A a lot. I didn't know books existed before Facebook. So there's that, and then you guys can catch me at DJ Otis Badass on Twitter, like I said, and then on Saturday nights on Double Q, the Saturday Night Block Party, and then turn right back around. We do it on Sunday morning on Double Q. As I like to say, we raise hell and praise Jesus all in one motion on Sunday mornings on Double Q. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Otis. This has been so much fun talking to you. Hopefully we get to talk to you again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Maybe close to WrestleMania season.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll fire up the grill and bring your tailgating chairs and bring a cooler, and we'll put it out in the driveway, and we'll tailgate watch WrestleMania.
All right. Sounds good. That's a wrap for our interview with Mr. DJ Otis Badass. I want to thank Otis for being such a great guest on our podcast here. We got to talk a little wrestling, got to talk about some PTW, got to talk some WWE. So thank you, Otis, just for a good time. Just thank you for all your work you did and all your help to make our podcast possible. And thank you for everyone who's listening. You are all making this possible here today. So be sure to check out Primetime Wrestling on Facebook. You can also find them on Twitter at PT Wrestling. You can also find DJ Otis Badass on Twitter at DJ Otis Badass. You can also follow our show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FITC Podcast. That's FITC Podcast. You can find us now on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and YouTube as well. And you can always email the show at friendsinthecornerpodcast@gmail.com. That's friends in the corner, all together lowercase, at gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening to the third episode of Friends in the Corner podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for a YouTube exclusive we're going to do. Can't wait for that. Well, we'll see you guys then. That's a wrap.